welcome to this week's episode of Sippin On Country. I am here today with Katie Cook. Welcome.
Hi, Amy.
So let's just tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of what you have done, like your kind of history and whatnot in the industry.
Yeah, gosh, where do I start? Should I start with kind of literally where I'm from?
Let's go for it.
Okay, well, I'm actually from England, and my dad's a songwriter, so we moved over here in the mid-'70s because he fell in love with the whole scene here, incredible songwriting scene. So I was definitely raised in music around writers, and he was also a performing artist, so I was raised with the whole kind of touring musician lifestyle. He was gone a lot, and he got really tired of that, so that's kind of why he fell in love with the idea of just being a full-time songwriter, getting off the road. And it was kind of a choice between New York and LA, but then he came to Nashville, and he met like Cowboy Jack Clement, and got to meet all the Nashville cats, all the session players, in the 70s, and just really fell in love with it and brought the whole family here. So I was only 5 when we moved here. Okay. And that was 76. So Nashville was very, very different then. Very different.
Yes,
and
sure.
But yeah, he just fell into writing here. He'd had hits in England, but really wanted to kind of learn how to write country songs. And it is different. It's very different. And it took him a few years, but then he started to do well here. So, that whole music lifestyle just translated to here. And I was, just very much raised in it. And then when I became a teenager, I started trying to write songs, and I knew I was going to be in the entertainment business somehow. I wasn't exactly sure of my path, but I didn't go to college. I just dove right into, trying to get out there in the world and make a name for myself. And it was in a few bands and everything. But I guess kind of long story short, I moved back to England for a while, formed a band with my brother called Reno, and we got a record deal out of Nashville. So that actually, ironically, brought me back to Nashville a lot, and I just, in the end, really wanted to be here. And the band broke up. So then I had no money. Still had a record deal, but I had no money. And I was like, what do I do? And then that's when I found the TV job at CMT and became a television host, which is sort of the death of my music career, at least for a while. I've kind of come back to it now. So, yeah, I guess that was kind of a long story, but basically raised in music, found myself in it in the end, but then strangely led to TV, but still in music.
Right.
Because my job was to interview musicians, obviously.
So, I mean, I think growing up in like an entertainment kind of household, you probably either go one way or the other. Like, you're either going to be like, nope, I don't want to do this, I want to be part of it. Or your way where, I mean, from even being little, you were like, this is what I want to do.
I knew I'd be in music somehow. I mean, it's all I knew, was to be around that entertainment business. But I have to say it was intimidating. I'm almost jealous of people that weren't raised in a music household because they could just be the first musician in their family, and anything they do, if they learn 3 chords, it's going to be like, oh, you're going to be a star, For me, it was the complete opposite, I'm like waking up in the morning and John Prine's sitting at the table with my dad and they're writing a song. I mean, that's a little intimidating to think, oh yeah, I'm going to pick up a guitar and be a good songwriter. So it stunted me actually for a while. I knew I was going to be in the business somehow, but I just wasn't sure I could ever live up to these people that I'd been around, and my mother even worked in the music industry for a while and was working for Garth Brooks management just as his career was taking off. Again, like, how do you even begin to think you could ever be in that realm, with these
that's a
giants?
lot of names,
Yeah, and so honestly, for a while, I think I was too insecure. But yeah, I don't know. I definitely had the bug, and sooner or later found my own voice in it. But it's interesting because I didn't want, when I had my record deal, when we would do interviews, we all agreed, let's not let my dad even get brought up in the interviews because we've really got to stand on our own 2 feet. And honestly, looking back, I think that was a mistake. I think I would advise an artist now not to be that way. If there's any reason why someone wants to talk to you, let that be the reason you get the interview.
Interesting.
Just roll with it. If you're any good, sooner or later people will want to talk to you just for you.
Right.
But I think we really kind of missed it with that one.
If you can use it just to get your foot in the door, I mean, why not?
Why not? I mean, if you have a really successful parent, that sometimes is going to be the only reason someone wants to talk to you initially.
Right.
So my advice to anyone listening that's getting started, if you have a connection, don't be afraid to use it,
I guess there's always that concern that by throwing that name out there, then you end up on the other side where you get the criticism of, oh well, they're only there because of that. And
you'll get it anyway.
That's true. I mean, people are going to find out whether you mention something in an interview and say, oh, you know, my mum's this or my dad's this, or, you know, I mean, it's going to come up through the media, especially now with social media. I mean, you can't hide anything just because you don't talk about it publicly. People are still like, oh, well, this is so and so's.
Yeah, so you might as well use it to your advantage. If it's the reason someone wants to talk to you, go for it. Go for it.
That's smart. That's smart. Because I think a lot of people, it's that just, you know, being compared to that. But you're right. Yeah, I mean, it's going to happen anyway. Mm-hmm. So you were doing the music thing, full circle, moving back to England. Yeah. Ended up back in Nashville anyway. So how did the CMT thing come about?
Well, that was interesting. I always feel bad because people will write to me and be like, I'm trying to find a journalism school. I want to know where you studied journalism. And I'm like, oh gosh, I don't know how to tell you. I stumbled into this one sideways and backwards and almost accidentally. Basically, so I told you the band broke up, but I still have my record deal, but I didn't have all that touring income coming in or anything. And so I was broke, really broke. And before I got into music, I was licensed as a cosmetologist, so I was doing hair. Okay. But I didn't want to go back to doing hair full time. That's actually really physically a difficult job. So tip your shampoo techs really, really well. Tip your hairdressers well. They're on their feet all day. I didn't want to get back into it, but I needed money. And so I called a friend that had a hair salon. I said, look, I don't want to get back into doing hair, but I will wax eyebrows, I'll shampoo clients, I'll sweep the floors, answer the phones. I just need like a few $100 a week till I figure out my record deal thing. I guess I'm going to be a solo artist because my band had broken up. So I was in a salon doing that, and one of the hairstylists there, Tony, he said, oh, I hear CMT is interviewing for VJs, as they were calling them, you know, like DJs, but for videos. And he goes, I think I wouldn't mind auditioning for that. And I was like, you know, I know somebody over there, because I had put together this backing band for me at that point, and the drummer was dating a girl that worked at CMT. I said, why don't I call and get you an audition? So I literally called this person at CMT to get my friend Tony an audition. And she said, well, they need a guy and a girl. You might want to consider this. You'd be good at it. You know how to talk about music. You're not starstruck. You'd be cool on camera. I was like, I'm an artist. I don't know. You know, I don't know anything about interviewing people. And bear in mind, I had fire engine red hair at the time and got my nose pierced. I had my lip freshly pierced, and I've got tattoos. And I was like, they'd hate me. And she said, well, you know, I hear they want something kind of different. I was like, well, I'd definitely be different. So I ended up going along. My friend Tony decided not to even go audition.
Oh, that's funny.
But I was like, I'll go. And I didn't know what I was doing. Amy, I swear to God, I didn't even have a headshot. I was so clueless. But I was up for I was up for anything, and I needed to make a living. And my friend said, you know, you could meet like Dolly Parton. I was like, well, I'm in, you know. So I went and just pretended to be someone on camera, like, hey, back to the countdown, you know. And I just like making stuff up, like, hey, you know. And I actually guess I stood out as someone who kind of could do this. I was shocked that I got a call back. But what's funny is they said, hey, you know, we really like you, but we really don't like how you look. Is there any way you would just change everything? And I was like, nah. And so I kind of blew it off. And a few weeks went by, and I can't remember if I checked back in with them or they reached out to me, but they were like, you know, you're really on the short list. Like, we've looked at a couple thousand people, and you are on the short list. And I was like, really? And my husband at the time, he was like, you know, you change your hair color like every few weeks. Like, what's the big deal? Just go blonde again, pull the lip ring out, you know, like this could be a really good job for you. And I was like, you know, you're right. So I went back in and auditioned again, and then it really got down to, it was like the top 10, and I was in it, and I actually got the job. And then I was like, oh my God, what do I do? Next thing I know, they're throwing me on the Opry and morning radio, and I'm hosting live television. And I got to be honest, those first couple of years, I was kind of drowning under the stress of it, but I loved it too, because I was meeting Vince Gill, Alison Krauss, Dolly Parton, all my heroes. And so I got consumed with trying to figure out how to be someone on TV and how to do a good interview.
Right. And I mean, eventually, you know, you do something enough, you learn, you know, I'm sure you make your mistakes, you learn from them, you go, okay, well, I'm not going to do that next time. But I mean, you know, you do it long enough, you see what, you know, you learn what producers want, and I mean, I think a lot of it boils down to personality as well. You know, like just being on camera and just having that, which you have that, you're very social, like that bubbly personality that people love. And I mean, how long were you with CMT for?
Well, I'm still technically there, and it's been, I mean, that was 2001, so this is like my 23rd year. That's crazy. But I really pulled back a few years ago. My daughter was getting older, and, you know, anyone who's ever watched Hot 20 Countdown, we go somewhere every week. So I was flying somewhere almost every week, you know, for a couple decades, and covering all the, you know, Grammys and ACMs, and just being gone a lot. And I got to where I didn't want to do that anymore.
Right.
And I was like, I've only got a few years with my daughter at home before she graduates. So it was actually right before COVID, I just started saying to them, like, I think I need to go really, really part-time or do something else altogether. But then COVID happened, and God bless them, they put cameras in our homes so that we could shoot from home. And that was such a blessing. I was so glad that I was still with CMT then, because thank God I had a job, you know. But then once COVID lifted and we were all back to traveling, I just was like, oh, I just really can't do this anymore. So I'm still there. They can still call me if they're, you know, if they need like a backup, if the other couple of hosts are busy. But I just chose to really pull back and focus on music. And I actually got a realtor's license. Because I've always been really passionate about real estate, and I needed, you know, some kind of backup plan. So yeah, I'm still doing all the things I love, but yeah, you're not seeing my face on TV quite so much anymore. But I have some, it's too soon to announce it now, but I am actually working on a couple other things, so I might be kind of throwing my hat back in the ring.
Okay.
Yeah, my daughter graduates this summer, and I'm kind of feeling the itch to get back to work, so.
That makes sense.
You haven't totally gotten rid of me.
I mean, I think that, you know, people see, you know, the TV side, and they're like, oh, you get to go cover all this stuff, and it sounds amazing. But, you know, they don't see that behind the scenes of actually, you know, yes, you're there, you're on the red carpet, you're doing this, you're interviewing this person, but then for these other 8 hours, you're stuck in airports, you're on the plane, you know, you're traveling. It's a lot. Like, it's intensive.
It's a lot, yeah. And being a touring musician is a lot. You know, it is stressful. You don't ever want to whine about it, because the job is supposed to be fun, and you really want the person at home watching to think that all you do is have fun with it. So, and I want to be careful to not paint it negatively, but it does take a toll. It's not for everyone, and especially if you become a parent, going anywhere, even if it's just for 2 nights a week, seems like too much. Right.
And I think it's hard because it's also, you know, it's all relative. That yes, you know, it might be a glamorous, like, exciting job, but also it's still a job. You know, at the end of the day, whether you're working in TV or you're, you know, I don't know, retail, anything like that, like there's always pros and cons to it. So I think it's never going to be 100% all the time. With that being said, do you remember who the first person was you ever got to interview?
I think it might have been Phil Vassar, backstage at the Opry, I think was technically my first interview.
That feels like a good first interview.
Yeah, he's lovely. Yeah. He's so friendly. And I mean, the whole Opry atmosphere was always wonderful. That really, it's not just for show. It is a family. They really welcome you in, and I always felt really comfortable there. It is still a lot of pressure to do live TV, I can tell you, when you're standing on that stage and you got one person in your ear going, oh, I think you're going to have a minute. You need to stretch. And then you're stretching, and all of a sudden they're like, quick, you need to talk. So we've got, you know, because that was a radio show and a live TV show at the same time, and they had to coordinate, you know, and there was always something that seemed to go wrong with the timing on that one. So that used to actually stress me out a lot. But I had such a love and respect for the Opry. And I want to say Phil Vassar was the first interview.
Nice. Yeah, I feel like that's a really nice step in. He's great. So now, obviously, kind of still doing that. Maybe some news coming.
Yes.
But you have got back to the music.
Yes.
And so with your husband now, with Adam, you guys have a band called Suncat.
Yes.
So just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So when Adam and I started dating, we've actually known each other just as friends for, over a couple decades, you know, just kind of both running in the music scene. But we got divorced around the same time, and we started dating. That was 2014. And, you know, we both have written songs for years, but had never had a romantic partner to write songs with. And I had always wondered what that was like. I got to the point where I thought, is that even really possible? I don't know. But, you know, when you put two writers together, naturally, sooner or later, they're going to try writing something. And we had tried to write a couple songs, like more for pitching, because neither one of us really had an active solo band thing going on at the time. And gosh, it was okay. We wrote a couple decent songs, but then one night we were just sitting around so relaxed, and he had brought the mandolin over, and I think we were literally sitting in bed, nothing saucy going on, just sitting in bed, and he's playing the mandolin, and we wrote, I guess, what was our very first song? You Don't Know Love, I think was the first song we wrote, and we were just singing together, and the blend of our voices. We realized as soon as the song was over, we're like, that doesn't sound like anything we're going to pitch. It's a little, I don't know, alternative, whatever. Right. It didn't really sound commercial radio. And we loved the way we sang together. And we're like, wow, maybe there's something here. And I think within a week or two, we had written 5 songs.
Oh, wow.
And we were like, okay, there's something here. And I mean, I was the singer of a band. He's been a singer in other bands. But I don't think either one of us ever felt as confident as we really needed to be on our own. But there's something about singing together, it just lifted us both. We both felt stronger together. It sounds kind of corny, but that's really what happened. And and then he came up with a great name, Suncat. I call him Sunny. That's my nickname for him. And then Cat, you know, short for Katie. I was like, yeah, that sounds kind of 70s. You know, we're so like Fleetwood Mac and Zeppelin influenced singer-songwriter, you know, just real 70s acoustic vibe. And I was like, yeah, that sort of sounds like the right name for us. And we just became a duo. We didn't put a lot of thought into it. And we made a record I'm super proud of. And then we both got really, really busy. And we are trying to get back around to making another record. But he, in that process, learned to really trust my production skills and style. And in a way that nobody else really ever had.
Right.
I've been involved in a lot of different projects and would try to kind of put my ideas out there. And you know, people are kind of like, that's cute. Yeah, maybe we'll take that one idea. And I'm always like, I wish you guys would really listen to me because I really have a lot going on in my head. And he's really the first person that is like, you know, I want to let you really run with this production stuff. You've got great ideas. And he ended up letting me produce his solo album that he put out last year.
Oh, nice.
All the Birds Sing. And that was the first time I really could flex those production muscles. And that felt so good. I think I'm more interested in that now than even being an artist. Supporting other artists would be a dream. So part of this winding down from TV is just finding that extra space and time to focus on that.
Right. I mean, moving into that production side of things, I mean, just from doing TV, I guess I know obviously it's a different side of things because, you know, TV aside to recorded music, but just seeing how everything kind of fits together. And like working, it's almost analytical. I feel like when you're going through the production side of things.
Yes, yeah, and my brain, I think, is made for that. It is similar, TV production and music production. I mean, you have to be organized. You have to really think ahead of time of what you want, so you don't waste anyone's time, and really look for the creativity in it. I'm happiest when I'm being creative.
Right.
If I'm creating, I'm good. I'm in my happy place. And the only problem with the TV work for me is just it's all about someone else's career all the time. My job as a journalist and TV host is to set other people up to shine.
Right.
And I love doing that. That is a really good feeling. Even when I used to cut hair, you know, somebody would come to me like in a bad mood or I don't like what's going on. And I would have them walking out, standing up tall and looking beautiful. And I there is a big part of me that just wants to set other people up to succeed.
Right.
So, you know, that's good, but somewhere in there I lost the time and bandwidth for my own creativity.
Just focus on you.
And there's a lot there. I have a lot that I want to put out into the world. So it's just nice to be getting back to that side of myself.
It's nice that you have that outlet as well. And I mean, especially with Adam, I mean, just I feel like having that, you know, you probably know him better than anyone else.
Better than he knows himself.
Right?
Yeah.
So to be able to kind of put all that into kind of that person as well, because it's more than just the production. Like you have a bigger connection to really go like you know the sort of sound that he wants. Like you can, it's I don't know where I'm at.
When I love him and I would just want him to shine and I love these songs and I truly think I mean, he is truly one of my favorite songwriters. He is absolutely my favorite musician. And not he's known for guitar, but he's my favorite bass player. He's one of my favorite drummers, you know, and he'd laugh and say, I barely play drums. But I love the way his mind works around music and composition. But he gets so into it, it's almost like you can't see the forest for the trees. And that's where I can walk in and see the big picture.
Right, and
he's
just
been
take a
sitting there
step
for
back.
hours, you know, he's been trying to edit one thing and it's not working. And he gets almost in engineer mode. And nothing against engineers, because there's some creativity there, obviously. But I think a good producer knows when to just walk away, go take a long walk, get some fresh air, go have lunch, and come back in and hear where other people are too into it. He gets so into it. I'm like, how can you sit at the computer for 10 hours and work on a song?
Right.
But he, you know,
without taking that step back to just go, okay, where am I? Yeah.
you lose perspective. And so I think that's the biggest role of a producer, is keeping perspective and keeping the overall, you know, idea behind this project in mind. And I think I'm good at that.
Right.
I'm not good at sitting for 10 hours in front of a computer screen.
And just, yeah.
I'm not that producer at all.
So from doing that, you said you want to do a second record with Suncat.
Yes.
How do you feel like that is going to impact how you maybe walk into doing this next record? Do you think it's going to change having all these, having these extra experiences with doing the production on that? Do you think it's going to change your mindset?
Maybe. I don't know, because we very much co-produced the Suncat album as well. That's really how we learned to, you know, produce music together. So I imagine it'll be similar the second time around, but I think the songs, we probably would not be able to duplicate the vibe of the first Suncat album if we tried, because we're both a little ADD creatively, and I can already feel that we're going somewhere different with these new batch of songs that we're writing, and that's the only way we'd really be happy. And we almost, it's what we have in common is I think we actually shoot ourselves in the foot a little bit, you know, as artists, because we can't do the same thing all the time. And sometimes you have to just be consistent enough to build your fan base. But I've always, every music project I've done has been completely different than the one before. And so I think people are almost like, who are you? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm a creative person. I'm just going to do something different every time I do it. That's what makes us happy. And I think we're at a stage in our life where it would be really nice to sell a lot of records and go on a big tour and, you know, get radio play. But we are so in it now just purely for what we want to do and be as creative people. So I imagine this second Suncat album will sound pretty different, but it's still going to be us. I guess the thread is our voices and our writing style.
Right, there's certain things that, you know, you can't change even if you wanted to, because they're just, it's going to run through the records. And I think people who have heard the earlier music, you know, I mean, people will follow regardless. And I think
hope so.
I think it's nice to, I kind of like it when I hear artists come out with different stuff, because I think, yes, it, you know, I mean, you've got people like Brad Paisley, right? Like his records from the 90s to the record, they sound no different.
Yes.
You know, and I think that's great. Like he very much is, this is who I am, this is what I do. But not everyone is like that. And I think when you've got all these ideas, to be able to have the free reign to actually kind of mix it up, I think it's nice. And I think that
so
a lot of people
too.
appreciate it.
Well, and we don't have the pressure, good or bad, we don't have the pressure of a label.
Right.
You know, picking singles and all that kind of stuff. We're total indie artists, and so
Release what you want.
we might as well just do what we want. We, you know, we've always said we're going to make a record that we would want to listen to. We're not on the charts, so we don't have to obsess about what's trendy right now. Or we got to have a rap section, or you know, whatever. I mean, we just don't have to follow any of those rules. And there's a great freedom in that. We might stay broke forever, but there's a great freedom in that.
Hey, broken happy, right?
Broken happy, yes.
So obviously you are very creative. For anyone watching on video, just take your t-shirt, your hoodie. We've got some alien
Alien
themed
action, yeah.
So obviously you have a podcast.
Yes, well, I'm
well.
taking a break from that right now too. But yes, I've hosted a couple podcasts around the paranormal topic. I had the WOW podcast, Wide Open Wonders. That was just me interviewing people. And then I was also a co-host on the MUFON What's Up podcast. If you don't know what MUFON is, that's Mutual UFO Network. And yeah, that's a huge passion of mine. I also have a painting series. It's called Alienated, where I do a lot of originals, just blank canvas, and create, you know, stuff with aliens and UFOs. But I also love to find old kitschy 70s artwork, like from thrift stores, and then put things into it. You know, cryptids and UFOs and aliens. If I mess up, I just take them back to Goodwill, and I figure that's going to really mess with people's heads. They'll be like, "Oh, that's a pretty picture. Wait, what's going on in that?" I think it's the most fascinating topic in the world. I've had a very paranormal life and a lot of strange experiences that, supposedly couldn't be real, but they were. And so I'm very passionate about studying that and helping to destigmatize it.
Right.
That's important.
I think there definitely is a kind of... People just don't really talk about it, or it's like... I love it. Like I'm always watching stuff. I know we've spoken about this before, but I think it's interesting. Like people see you on TV. That's as for the most part, that is what people know you for from CMT, and they don't see like all those little bits behind. There's a lot of people that aren't going to know about Suncat that hopefully we can push out. I'm going to link to everything as well.
Thank you.
But I just think when you have people with such creative minds, it never stops at one thing.
No, and it doesn't. Yeah, I am kind of a jack of all trades, I suppose. I plan to have 3 or 4 more, careers before I die. I also write books. I mean, I can't stop my brain. Mm-hmm. It is so active, and I'm so curious. I really am truly a curious person, and I think that actually makes the best kind of journalists. Right. You definitely shouldn't get into a job like TV hosting if you just want to be on TV. I mean, you're going to run out of questions. I mean,
right.
You really have to be genuinely curious about the world, and I always have been. And my parents, they're such beautiful people, and they raised me to be so open-minded. And this might ruffle some feathers, but I feel like I should just say this right now. I'm very thankful that they didn't raise me with any particular religion. I had no boundaries around me,
right.
And in a really good way.
Yeah.
They just taught me to be a kind, curious person. And I have developed my own beliefs over the years, but I had the freedom to explore all of it. And I love that. I think it made me a really open-minded person. I'm not saying you can't be if you were raised with some constraints, but, a lot of organized religion, it can box you in.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that, maybe America more so as well, and saying that, obviously not growing up here, that, it can box people in, or at least from the outset it seems,
It can go a couple different ways, yeah. And I do want to be careful not to offend anyone. No. I mean, you can be raised very, very, very religiously and still have a very open mind. I think 100. It does depend on the church you're in and the parents. Oh. But yeah, all that to say, my parents just were always like, find what makes you happy and lights your brain up. And, and so I was just raised to be really creative, and that's my happy place, yeah.
I think ultimately what's important, religion or not, just do what you love and be a good person while you're doing it.
Be nice.
Just don't,
I
think,
worry more about yourself than everyone else.
I think there is something to be said at times for just being selfish, and it doesn't have to be at a detriment to other people. But I think a lot of the time, and maybe more of a female thing as well, that you have the tendency to worry about other people rather than actually going, what do I need?
Yeah, I'm thinking of that Michael Jackson song, Man in the Mirror.
Yeah.
I mean, really, if everyone did just focus on doing what's good for them that doesn't hurt anyone else, I do think the world would improve. We're a little too obsessed with what everyone else is doing all the time.
Yeah, that's
all right, true. I'll get off my soapbox now. But.
Hey! So,
yeah.
But no, you're right. I mean, I love that you've been able to take that creative thing and put it into so many avenues. And I think, given your upbringing as well, and being around so much creativity, I think that I'm sure that's helped going into it.
Well, yeah, and I think being a child of the 70s, I mean, I want to keep this show family friendly for you, but I was around a lot of, let's face it, like songwriters back in the day, token and getting pretty out there, and I heard some out there conversations, but I love that now. I look back, that's such a good memory for me. These people were so creative and so open-minded, and I love that I was raised around that. It helped me just be wide open. Put it this way, I never had to feel ashamed for being a little different.
Right.
I have always been a little bit different. Kind of everyone in my family is. And yeah, we used to get stared at. I mean, my parents were these fabulous hippies back in the day, and we ended up living, down in Franklin, and My dad drove a Rolls Royce that he brought over from England, but we're going down Wilson Pike that was full of potholes at the time. It was almost a dirt road. And I mean, I'm sure people were just like, who are these freaky people? You know, we were always stared at, you know, and I got used to that. I'm kind of like, it's okay. I'm just going to be myself. You can like it or not. You don't have to like me. That's totally cool. And I'm trying really hard to raise my daughter and just my beautiful stepkids. Just be yourself. Be 100% you. If somebody doesn't like it, great. It's a repellent. They weren't meant to be in your life anyway. But don't go around trying to be what somebody else wants you to be. That's a horrible way to live.
Yeah. But you know what? I think you saying that with that outlook, the whole thing with CMT and going in for the audition, like you did, you went in and you were you, and it was probably a breath of fresh air to see someone come in and not trying to conform to what they think that producers wanted. You know, you went in there and you did your thing, but I mean, it paid off. You know,
I actually got the job. I laughed so hard when I look back at it. Now I'm like, I had so much nerve even showing up for that audition, looking the way I did and having absolutely no training.
It's like, hey guys.
I was clueless. Amy, you have no idea how clueless I was. But I had nothing to lose, you know, and I did have, even then, even though I didn't know what I was doing and I didn't know what I was walking into, my attitude was I should just be myself, because otherwise they're not really... What am I going to do? If I go in and I fake it, then I'm stuck faking it for a long time.
Eventually it's going to come out and then they're going to be like,
Yeah, that's not what we hired. But, you know, the job for the most part, again, my job was to set other people up to shine. So it wasn't really supposed to ever be all about my personality.
True, but then also I think that it takes the right person to be able to do that as well. You know, if you don't have the personality for it, then you can't bring the best out in the people that you're interviewing as well. So I think, you know, it goes both ways. Although, yes, you know, you're interviewing Dolly Parton, people are turning that on to watch Dolly, right? Like, they don't care who's interviewing her, it's Dolly. But you need the right person to be able to bring out the best in that.
Yeah, and you need to be able to keep up with the artists. You know, most artists do have big personalities, and so you can't shrink away from that. You need to be able to keep up with them and inspire them to, so it's pulling the right thing out of them. So, yeah, you got to keep up. And it's even the way, like, you dress on TV. Yeah, I'm realizing this whole conversation is probably going to be best suited to be pitched to people that want to get into being a TV host. So I hope that's okay. That's just kind of the way the conversation's gone. But, you know, I was always conscious of, well, I need to look cute enough to be on TV. I got to have a cute outfit. But I never wanted to outshine a Dolly Parton.
Right.
You don't even try. I mean, you just don't even try. It's funny, the first time I interviewed Dolly, she is so precious. She is literally everything you want her to be. I mean, she's just a light worker on this planet. I love her so much.
One day, maybe.
Oh, yeah, you'll meet her, and it'll be everything you want it to be. Because Dolly would not leave the house unless she was willing to be Dolly for the world that day. Right. I mean, she takes that seriously. And first time I interviewed her, I was in the makeup room with the door shut. And I was just like, I mean, my hands were shaking. I was so excited to meet her. And I truly don't get starstruck. I really don't. But Dolly is Dolly. She's like from another planet, right?
She's like, on another,
That's just a whole other spectrum, you know. And she came in. I could hear her just talking, her cute little voice and everything. I was like, oh, my God. And I said to my makeup artist, I said, I better go out and say hi to her before you even get any eye makeup on, because I got a feeling I'm going to bawl my eyes out. And so, you know, I took a deep breath and I went out, and she's like, well, hi. And I was like, hi, you know. And she's like, what are you going to wear today? Like girlfriend talk. Right. I was like, oh, my God, how precious. And I showed her a couple outfits, and one was this kind of floral bustier kind of thing, you know, kind of shows off the tatas. And I was going to have a jacket over it. It wasn't going to be tacky, but I thought that might be really cute. And I jokingly said to her, I was like, well, I was thinking about wearing this, but I said, let's face it, I can't really compete. I don't. Maybe this is not the outfit I should wear. And she looked down at herself. She looked down at me. She's like, "Oh, you're great. You're gonna look precious in that." And I was like, "Oh my God, I've just met Dolly Parton. We're talking about our boobs. I feel like she's my sister already."
I mean, it feels like a good first logical conversation.
It was the best. It was the best. I was like, I can die happy now. And so we picked our outfits out, and I went back in, and I did proceed to cry all of my makeup off, and she even brought it up again in the interview. She's like, I think she looks great. Don't you think she looks great? She was worried about what to wear, but I think she looks precious. She is the best. But yeah, all that to say, I always tried to kind of have my personality, I guess, on display, but not too much. You do have to know your
Right.
place, I think. It's different to be an artist on stage. Then it's all about you.
Right.
But in the TV job as a journalist, it's like you want to shine just enough, but not try to overpower.
That makes sense.
Because that's obnoxious. Like you
Right.
said, they weren't tuning in to see me. They were
Right.
tuning in to see Dolly.
Yeah.
I was always very aware of that.
Which, I mean, was there ever any point where you kind of found that difficult to be like, you know, this is my job? And I mean, you prior to that, your whole thing had been like, I want to be a musician, you know, I want to be an artist, I want to do my music, and that was being there in the forefront. And then all of a sudden you find yourself in this position where, yes, you have incredible opportunities to interview people like Dolly, but also it's not about you.
Yeah.
You know, you have to take the step back.
I had a very difficult night. I think I was exhausted. I was feeling so much pressure with the job. It was backstage at the Opry, and it was when it was actually, you know, at the Ryman downtown, because they would do winter months at the Ryman and then warmer months out at Opryland, you know, or Gaylord, whatever it's called now. We were upstairs at the Ryman. I was interviewing Cindy Thompson that night and possibly Jody Messina, because somebody from Curb Records was there. Now, bear in mind, I was signed to Curb Records. I was actually still signed to Curb Records at the time.
Okay.
And, but I, you know, started this TV job, and I did look different than how they knew me in my band Reno, because that was kind of the wild colored hair and everything. But somebody was there from Curb, I think to present a plaque, possibly to Jody Messina that night. And I said hi to this person. We weren't live at the time. We were in a commercial break, and we only had a couple minutes, you know, in between breaks. And I said hi to this person. Like, I'm not going to say their name, so I don't want to be rude. And I could tell they did not recognize me. And I did look different, like I said, but I was gutted. I mean, because here I am, I'm still signed to this label. I'm still thinking I'm going to have a music career. I'm only like a year into my TV work, and I'm thinking they're probably only going to have me on CMT for like a year.
Right.
Then they'll fire me, and I'll get back to focusing on my music. When they didn't recognize me, I felt in my heart in that moment, it was like my music career just ended. Like, I'm not even being recognized for that anymore. Right. And I started to cry, and my producer was freaking out, like, you got to stop crying. Like, we're about to come back, you know. And I mean, I was like, I can't do this. I can't do the rest of the show. It was very unprofessional of me, but I lost it. I just lost it. And I pulled it together, got through the next little segment, and then Cindy Thompson sat down. She was my next live interview. And again, we were in a commercial break, and I was just trying to pull it together. I was like, I'm so sorry. I just had a crushing moment. I feel like my whole former life just died in an instant, and I just am really struggling with who I am right now. And she looked at me and she said, well, God has a plan for all of us. And I was like, okay. God, what's your plan? Because I'm feeling pretty crushed right now, but you're right. And you know what's interesting, and I hope Cindy wouldn't mind me saying this. I don't have permission to tell her story, but I know she was struggling too at the time. Looking back on it, I'm not sure all of her artist dreams were coming true. I think it felt very different. And she actually pulled out of being an artist for a good long while after that. She really took a step back. And I think in that moment she was talking to herself as well as me.
Right.
Here I am thinking I'm no longer an artist, and that's crushing my soul. But I'm sitting across from an artist that's maybe not any happier than I was in that moment. That was tough, but eye-opening. And I did go through a time where interviewing artists, I saw so many unhappy artists that I actually started to wonder if I had dodged a bullet.
Right. I was going to say, is there ever any part of you that looks back on taking the CMT job and almost regrets taking it because of the music side of things? But I mean, you saying that, do you feel like as time went on, you were kind of like, maybe this was...
I would say that feeling, it was this ebb and flow. I mean, I'd have moments where I'm like, what have I done? I should have stayed the course as an artist. And then other moments, like I said, seeing so many unhappy artists and thinking, I wouldn't trade places with you for all your millions and all the awards, you know, on your mantle. I would not trade places with you. So I'm the kind of person, it sounds cliche, but would I change anything? Well, no. Because right now I'm so incredibly satisfied with my life that, of course, I wouldn't change anything.
Right.
You know, to get here. But it is weird when I think I spent so many years thinking I was going to be this, you know, star of my own, you know, on the stage, and my songs would be heard. yeah, that's still a hard thing to let go. Every once in a while, I still find myself fantasizing about
what
my
if?
acceptance speech.
Right.
You know, I want to thank my first manager for believing in me, and my parents for raising me so free and cool. And you know, it's like I have all this stuff in my head, and then I'm like, no, Katie, you're actually not probably ever going to get that award, and that is a bitter pill sometimes. But the CMT work was amazing. I mean, that introduced me to all of my heroes. I got to travel around the world, you know, doing that job, and it provided a great stable living.
Right.
And there is that part of my personality. I'm Capricorn. I like to have things planned out. I do like to have a stable income. I mean, what a blessing, really. And I got a message just yesterday from someone. He was a college student, I think, at David Lipscomb, and he had interviewed me. I think he was in journalism classes, which is why he reached out to me. He just randomly sent me a message yesterday saying that I had just really helped him. This was years ago when we did this interview, and that I, you know, was just a big influence and positive inspiration for him. And I was like, wow, I forget sometimes that I maybe was more powerful in that job than I ever would have been as a singer.
Right.
So I think the universe just puts you maybe where you need to be, and you have to trust that.
That makes sense. I think, and I mean, everyone, you know, I think there's stuff in everyone's life where we can look back and say, well, what if we did this instead of that? But I think ultimately, I mean, now, you know, you get to make music your own way. You know, like we said, you have no constraints. You know, you don't have the record label behind you, which, you know, pros and cons dependent on kind of what you want, but you also get to put out exactly what you want the people to hear, as opposed to, you know, the label going, well, I know you like this, but actually we're thinking that maybe this isn't going to, like, we'd rather that you kind of went this way. So, you know, I think that's almost nice. It's nice that you've been able to come back around to it in such a free way.
Yeah, and honestly, I think I'm a much better writer now than I was then. I thought I was better back then than I really was. I look back now and I'm like, God, was anybody giving me any guidance? Like, even my publisher, I wish they'd pulled me aside and been like, you could do better, you know. But it was very poppy music, and you know, pop songs, you can just repeat the same word over and over for a chorus and nobody cares, you know. So I didn't have a lot of pressure on me to be a better writer, but I am so much better now, and I think, God, maybe there's a blessing in that too, that I don't have 3 or 4 albums that I'm like, ugh, I'm not proud of now.
Right.
You know, what is out there, I am very proud of. I am really proud of that first Reno album. I mean, lyrically, I don't know if it's going to blow anyone away, but I think melodically it was great, and I love the production on it. I'm really proud of that. And then there's like 2 decades before the Suncat album comes out, but I'm so proud of that too. So better to only have a little bit out there, I think. Oh, can you hear my stomach rumbling?
I did hear that.
Oh my goodness. Oh, sorry, I need to eat something. Yeah, I think better to have a little bit out there of good quality. And, you know, I feel, in a way, I'm envious of, like, young writers that can be, like, 16 years old and just cranking out songs. You're like, oh, God, that's amazing. But I was really conscious of this when I was younger, that I wouldn't want to peak too young and then spend the rest of my life going, why am I not relevant anymore? I remember saying to someone when I was younger, I was like, if I'm ever famous, I hope it's from, like, 30 to 40. You know, because that's kind of a little midway.
Right. You finally kind of got your feet on the floor.
Yeah.
You know where you're at. You
mature enough to handle success if it comes your way. So I think, I mean, going back to what you asked a minute ago, no regrets. I really do think everything unfolded the way it was supposed to.
Nice. I love that. So I'm going to link to Reno. I will link to Suncat stuff, so everyone
can you link to some breakfast for my stomach?
I can link to some breakfast. I think I'm going to need some too. I also haven't eaten. So.
No, I'm sorry. I cut
early
you off,
morning
link
recording.
To Reno and Suncat would be wonderful.
And then...
And maybe Adam's album too, because, you know, I'm really proud of that as a producer.
I'm going to try and wrangle him on here at some point.
You should. He'll crack you up.
And with your artwork, do you sell your art, or do you just do it for yourself?
I really just do it for myself, and I give it away, you know, as gifts. I've had quite a few people ask me to do custom pieces.
Okay.
I did start a little Etsy store, but I haven't been able to part with any of it. You know, it's just too hard. But I'm hoping to do a lot more of that at some point. It makes me so happy. But I could probably send you some kind of link just so people can see it, because it's good fun.
You need to do a TikTok for it. I went down a rabbit hole a while ago of watching people that were just doing like the little
Oh, like time lapse? Where
Like the people doing the little ghosts.
Yeah.
Like, you just do that with your...
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
It was just fun. Like, it would show people going in, they'd buy the painting, then they'd come out, and then you kind of see the transformation to what it was from when they got just this, this thing from Goodwill to what they turned it into with their little cottagecore ghost.
That's a really, really good idea. And thank you for letting me talk about a little bit of everything.
No, 100%.
Today, you're really, really good at this, and I'm so excited that you have this podcast. And I love that you're from England, but you're so immersed in Nashville. I love that you're a musician and a songwriter, performer. You get all of this, so you're a very needed voice in this space.
I keep saying this is for everyone else to kind of, I think it's important for people to know what goes on behind just the people that finished product that you see of people, because there's so much more. But also, if I'm truthful, it's kind of selfish because I love this.
Well, you're good at it, so and that shows.
But thank you so much
for
coming on. Everyone, we will be back next week with another episode. Katie Cook, thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy.
And we'll see you soon. Recorded at 2300 Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. Original theme music by Gary Wood.